right. So ever feel like the typical health advice you hear just kind of falls flat? Like there's got to be, another way, even if it's a little bit out there.
Yeah.
So today we're diving into, this is going to be good, the unconventional wisdom of a guy named Darren.
Okay.
And let me tell you, his YouTube rant, oh man, it has sparked some serious debate. Like people are going back and forth on this one.
I can imagine.
So get this. So we watched his whole video. And so this is like right off the bat, he's all about what he calls efficient feeling.
Interesting.
Over, get this, calorie counting.
Okay.
So he's like anti-calorie counting. And he's really big on smaller meals, help your body, what he says, soak up those nutrients.
Interesting.
Have you ever even heard of this efficient feeling concept?
Not exactly. It's it's an intriguing idea. I'll give him that.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of, the whole mindful eating thing.
Okay.
Which has actually gained some scientific traction.
Okay.
There is some science behind that.
Interesting.
And that core concept is, slow down, enjoy your food, savor each bite.
Right.
And really, really connect with your body and those hunger cues.
Okay. Yeah.
And there is some evidence that this approach can actually help with digestion and nutrient absorption.
So maybe Darren's onto something here.
Perhaps.
With this whole efficiency thing.
It's possible.
Because get this, he goes on to slam the classic. You ready for this? 6 meals a day advice. Saying it overwhelms your system, your digestive system.
Yeah.
6 meals a day. Outdated or still valid? What do you think?
I think it's safe to say that the whole 6 meals a day mantra, it's a little outdated. Let's be real.
Okay.
The reality is it's not so much about how many meals you're fitting in.
Oh, yeah?
It's more about the total calories you're consuming.
Right.
And the types of food that you're fueling your body with.
So it's not a magic number.
No magic number.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Listen to your body. Find a balance that works for your lifestyle.
Okay.
And just, prioritize those nutrient-dense foods.
Solid advice. Solid advice.
Right.
Now, where Darren really gets detailed, he goes in-depth on this, is weightlifting.
Okay.
And he's got this, intricate system, right, of increasing and decreasing weight in a very specific pattern to maximize muscle fatigue.
Okay.
He is really passionate about this.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, does it hold any water?
Believe it or not, he's actually tapping into a really important principle of strength training.
Okay.
Varying your weights and reps, like he's talking about.
Right.
That's actually a well-established technique.
Okay.
By challenging your muscles in different ways, you're basically stimulating growth.
Oh.
And preventing plateaus.
Makes sense.
It's not just about lifting heavy. It's about, lifting smart.
So Darren's onto something with this weightlifting thing. It's about strategy.
I like it. And that's what's so fascinating about exploring these unconventional viewpoints, right?
Right, yeah.
There are often these little nuggets of wisdom hidden within, even if they're wrapped in a very unconventional package.
Speaking of unconventional, let's dive into Darren's take on, relationships.
Okay.
He does not hold back. He basically says relationships can sabotage a man's fitness journey.
Wow.
Yeah. He even calls women captivating in a way that can totally derail a man's dedication to the gym.
That's an interesting way to put it.
What do you make of that?
It's crucial here to understand the context, right?
Okay.
Because Darren seems to be framing relationships, the whole thing, especially for men, as a potential obstacle to their personal growth, particularly when we're talking about fitness.
Right.
He seems to be saying that relationships require sacrifices. That can really compromise a man's dedication to his physical well-being.
He even talks about the importance of men having their own space. He calls it a destination.
A destination.
Especially in challenging relationships. Almost as if men need to escape their partners to maintain their sense of self.
It's an interesting concept, right? This idea of a destination.
Right.
He seems to be highlighting how important, personal space and time are for self-discovery,
sure,
which in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Everyone needs time for themselves to recharge.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
However, framing it as an escape from your relationship kind of suggests there's this lack of balance there.
Right.
And and maybe even an inability to advocate for what you need within the partnership.
Interesting. So what you're saying is it's not about picking between a good relationship
Right.
or a six-pack.
Right.
It's about finding a balance that honors both.
That's exactly it. It's about open communication, being honest about what you need, setting those boundaries.
Right.
And supporting each other's goals as a couple.
So maybe instead of looking at relationships as this like threat to your personal growth, it's about finding someone who's on board with your journey, with your goals.
Yes.
Even if it means, scheduling in some me time at the gym.
Now you're talking.
But it's
about evolving our definition of what a healthy relationship really looks like.
I like that.
It's not about, sacrificing your individuality. It's about finding someone who celebrates it, who celebrates you.
Okay, I love that. Okay, listeners, get ready because now things take a little bit of a turn.
Oh, okay.
Darren's opinions on drug use,
Okay.
particularly among women, are something else.
Okay.
Buckle up.
All right.
So, and before we jump in, I want to say we want to proceed with caution here.
Right.
And a critical ear because drug use it's complex.
Absolutely.
And it's serious and we need to be sensitive about it, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And accurate with the information.
100%. Okay, so that being said, Darren does not hold back. At all.
Okay.
He paints a very, very grim picture of the effects of specifically cocaine and speed.
Okay.
Specifically on women. He describes their appearances, and this is where it gets a little rough, using some really harsh language. And he seems to have this very specific idea of how these women behave.
Okay.
He even uses that term skeletor to describe their appearance.
And that's really where his argument kind of falls apart,
Yeah.
It's never okay to generalize or to stigmatize someone based on how they look or our perception of whether they use drugs or not.
Right.
Addiction is very complex. There's so many factors: trauma, mental health, societal pressures.
Right.
And to reduce someone to a caricature like that it's not only inaccurate,
Right.
but it can be incredibly damaging.
Yeah. And it's dehumanizing too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So while what he's saying about the physical toll of drug use might be true, right?
Right. It's no secret that drugs can really take a toll on your body.
Right.
His delivery and his sweeping generalizations are definitely problematic.
Yeah. And he does this thing where he's sharing all these personal anecdotes.
Right.
Like he's witnessed all these women in public having what he calls meltdowns.
Right.
And he's attributing it directly to speed use.
Right.
Which, again, we have to be careful about.
Of course, correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right, exactly.
It's not because someone's, maybe not having their best day in public doesn't mean that they're on drugs.
Right.
There could be a million other explanations.
Right. And it's not fair to jump to those conclusions.
Yeah.
It's like he's taking these individual instances and he's creating this very specific and honestly inaccurate picture of women who use speed.
Yeah, and it's really important to point out that, he even goes on to say that you can identify these women based on their clothing.
Yeah. He says they always wear workout clothes.
Right. As if
even after they've stopped going to the gym.
Yeah. Like they're clinging to the part of their identity even as they're battling addiction.
Right.
It's like he finds it amusing, their struggles.
Yeah. It's like he's mocking them.
Yeah. It's really disheartening to see.
It's a lot to unpack. So we have Darren, who's clearly passionate about fitness. He's got this unconventional, but sometimes, like you said, insightful approach to diet and exercise. But then we have these really deeply concerning views on women and drug use.
Yeah.
That are just riddled with stereotypes and judgments.
And that's the thing about these kinds of deep dives, right? It's not always going to be black and white.
Right.
There are these gray areas.
Oh, I mean, how do we reconcile that?
That's the $1,000,000 question.
Right.
And it's something that we're going to continue to explore as we go deeper into Darren's worldview.
Right. Okay.
It's kind of wild how Darren's personal beliefs about women and drug use, it's like they kind of seep into everything,
Yeah.
Even when he's talking about stuff that seems totally unrelated, like relationships or personal growth.
It's like he's got this filter on his worldview. And it's hard to separate what he's actually observed from his judgments. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And we all do that to some extent, right?
Really, yeah,
Like
yeah.
we all have our own biases, our own little quirks that shape how we see things.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like Darren's, especially when it comes to women, they're pretty intense.
Yeah.
And honestly, it kind of makes it hard to take some of his other points seriously.
I hear that.
Even when they might, have some merit.
Yeah, it's like he's clinging to these really rigid ideas about men and women.
Okay.
And what he expects from them.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he's stuck in the past a little bit, you know?
yeah.
Like he hasn't quite caught up to how relationships are evolving.
Okay. Yeah. Give me an example of that. Like, where do you see that?
Okay, so like he has this whole thing about women who specifically go after guys who are already in relationships.
Okay. Yeah.
And the names he calls these women, it's harsh.
Oh yeah, it's really something.
And he seems to genuinely believe that these women are out there to like sabotage these guys, to ruin their relationships. Like they're preying on them because they think they're less likely to leave their partners.
It's like he sees these women as like these temptresses or something.
Yeah, like they're luring these men astray with their feminine wiles.
Right. Like these men have like zero agency in this whole situation.
Exactly. And he's got very little sympathy for the women who actually end up with these guys.
Oh, interesting.
Almost suggesting that they're the ones to blame for the guy's infidelity, you know?
Oh, wow.
As if these men are just like powerless to resist.
So it's like it's the woman's fault no matter what in his view.
It's this really like warped power dynamic.
Wow.
And it just completely ignores the whole concept of like taking responsibility for your actions,
Right.
for your choices.
So it's not biology.
Nope.
It's not like it was inevitable. It's about making a choice.
100%. And it's about creating this culture where we don't just accept infidelity. We don't make excuses for it.
Yeah.
But we see it for what it really is, a betrayal.
Right.
A betrayal of trust.
Yeah. It's serious.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's true. It's like it's easy to judge, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially when someone's views are just so different from our own.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's about trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. And that's what I think makes these deep dives so interesting. You know,
Yeah.
we're not here to like to tear someone apart. We're here to really unpack their ideas, figure out like what's the root, what's the why behind these beliefs.
Right, and maybe even learn something about ourselves along the way.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive into Darren's, unconventional wisdom, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think if you take away anything from this conversation, it should be the importance of thinking critically about the things that you hear. We've seen firsthand how easily our own experiences, our own biases, they can really color how we see the world.
Right.
Even when it comes to, fundamental things like health and relationships.
Right, and it's like that saying, right? Like, take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
Especially with stuff online,
Oh, 100%. You can't believe everything you read on the internet.
Right, exactly.
And don't be afraid to, to question your own beliefs.
It's easy to just stick with what you know, right?
Yeah. But we all have those blind spots.
Yeah.
And sometimes like those aha moments, they come from examining those deeply held beliefs.
Right.
And just being open to different perspectives.
Okay.
Even if it makes you a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good takeaway. It's like, it's okay to be challenged.
Exactly.
And Darren, say what you will about the guy, but he's definitely challenged us.
He has.
Maybe not always in the way that he intended.
Right.
But he's forced us to really think about some pretty big things.
He has. And, there's bigger issues like societal expectations.
Yes.
Gender roles.
Yeah.
How we treat people who are going through a tough time.
Yeah. Darren's really brought those to the forefront.
He has, absolutely.
So as we wrap up here, I want to encourage everyone listening, take some time to think about your own beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
About health, about relationships, about personal growth.
Yeah, like what resonates with you?
Yeah. What makes you feel uncomfortable? And maybe even more importantly, how can you talk about these things with other people?
Yes.
In a way that's kind, that's understanding, and that can hopefully make a positive impact.
It's all about recognizing that we're all just, figuring things out as we go.
We're all a work in progress, right?
We're all works in progress. Learning, growing, evolving. That never stops.
I love that. Couldn't have said it better myself. So on that note, we're gonna leave you to ponder all of this.
Yes.
And hopefully continue the conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks for having me.